Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to Axon Health. So if you follow us on any of our other social media platforms, you know that we've been covering disc herniations, and that kind of stuff this week. So I wanted to make a YouTube video for it as well and have more information all kind of in one place. So first, let's do a quick anatomy lesson. This is my model spine. Right here, you got the base of your skull. Green is the cervical spine, so your neck. Orange is your thoracic spine, so your mid-back, it's where all of your ribs attach. And then red, you've got your lumbar spine. Blue, you've got your sacrum. And then green is your little tailbone, your coccyx. So the discs, they start in your neck. They actually don't start between your first and your second vertebrae. As you can see, there isn't actually a disc there. This white thing is the disc. They start between your second and third vertebrae. So it's called your C2, C3 disc. C3, C4, blah, blah, blah. It goes all the way down between your lumbar spine and your sacrum. This is L5. This is your sacrum. We call this your L5S1 disc. More commonly, we see them herniated in the lumbar spine. There's actually an example of it on the model right here. I don't know that you can see it because it's also red, but there's an example there of a herniation. And they also typically happen in the cervical spine, although not as common. Least common is for it to happen in the mid-back, in your thoracic spine, and that's largely due to the fact that you have your ribs and your sternum. It's kind of a pretty stable area. So it's not impossible, but less common to have a disc herniation in your thoracic spine. So let's go through discs. Again, it's the white thing here. What is a disc? It's got a more of like a fibrous, strong outside, and then the inside is a little bit softer, a little more jelly-like. The primary function of them is to help with shock absorption, but over time, with aberrant movement, with dehydration of the disc, with aging over time, that fibrous outside can start to have some wear and tear to it. It can have little fissures and tears in it, and then that softer inside can poke out towards the outside of the disc where it's not supposed to be. So this is, we think, the vertebrae of a deer, which we found. And if you look at the bottom here, so it looks pretty similar to a human vertebrae. So if you look at the bottom here, this is actually where the disc would be. This hole right here is where your spinal cord would go. And then out the sides here is where your nerves would go to your limbs, out to your rib cage, out to your legs. So when the disc herniates, I keep holding it upside down, but when the disc herniates, so it'll either herniate, it more commonly herniates out to the side this way, but it can also herniate backwards. That's also pretty common as well. So obviously if it herniates out backwards, it's going to go into that space where your spinal cord is. And if it herniates out to the side, it's going to herniate into the area where your nerve that goes out to your arms, legs, etc., where that goes. So it can affect your spinal cord. It can affect what we call your peripheral nerve, which is what goes out to the limbs. And you can sometimes have the symptom of radiating pain down the arms or legs. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have that symptom. And a lot of people think that you get that symptom because the disc is actually pressing on that nerve. What research is actually finding is that it's less common than we thought for that to actually happen. It would require a pretty decent sized herniation for that to happen. But even with small herniations, you can still have that symptom going down the arms or legs. So why is that? We're actually finding that it has to do with the inflammatory process. So if you think about, let's say you sprained your ankle, what happens? It gets red, it gets swollen, it hurts. So all of those same things, because there's damage to the disc, that's the inflammatory process in your ankle. It's the same thing with the inflammatory process in your spine. Inflammation is inflammation. It's a pretty similar process no matter where it is. So you can still have the chemicals that are released with the inflammatory process can irritate the surrounding tissues, including that nerve. So the chemical irritation to that nerve is what can send that pain all the way down your leg, even though the problem is actually in your spine. So, is it the end of the world when you have a disc herniation? A lot of the time, people are told by their physician, whether it's a medical doctor, a chiropractor, whatever, a physical therapist, that they have a herniation, and immediately they think, oh my gosh, I need spine surgery. It's not the case. Um, if you look at this, there's actually been research done recently. If you look at that hole, even with 85% of an occlusion of that hole, they're finding that a lot of them can still respond well to conservative care management. 85% of that hole, like there's not, oh, I keep turning it the wrong way. There's not a whole lot of space with that if that's 85% occluded. So a lot of even physicians will look at that and say, oh my gosh, you have this monstrous herniation, you need surgery now. The reality is that sometimes you don't. If you're having symptoms like you can't control your bowel or bladder, you're not making it to the bathroom on time, you have what we call saddle anesthesia, which is numbness or tingling in the groin region, things to that nature, you can't really feel your limbs a whole lot, like you can't walk properly. At that point, it might be in your best interest to have a surgical consult, but if you're just having radiating pain down your legs, I would highly recommend that you seek the counsel of a conservative care specialist, meaning chiropractor, physical therapist, something like that. Just because if you can avoid surgery, then that's nice. I mean, we live in the US. I know that it's not the same for Canada, but if we live in the US, surgery is really expensive. So if you can get away with not having to pay for a surgery, even if you have insurance, it's still going to generally be pretty expensive even with insurance. So if you can save yourself a little bit of money and go down the conservative care route and not need surgery, that is probably going to be beneficial for you. I can't give you advice over YouTube. I have to do a full exam on you to determine whether or not that would be the best case for you. So obviously I can't talk to everybody over YouTube and I can't do an exam over YouTube. So seek an exam from another chiropractor, another physical therapist, your medical doctor, see if that's the best case for you. I would highly recommend bringing that up, especially because sometimes physicians, medical doctors, whether they're a medical doctor, they're a chiropractor, a DO, if they see a really big herniation, it kind of worries them too. But just try to have that discussion and be like, are you open to me trying conservative care first before I go down the surgical route? Because again, 85% occlusion, to most people that would look really big and scary, but you might respond well to conservative care. So what can a chiropractor do from a conservative care standpoint in order to help with a disc herniation? A lot of disc herniations respond really well to chiropractic care. There's different techniques within chiropractic with regards to adjusting and treatment. It doesn't always have to be a rack and crack kind of situation. And there's a technique called flexion distraction that was actually designed specifically for disc herniation. So if you have a disc herniation and you're looking for a chiropractor, ask them if they practice either flexion distraction or just traction in general, if they offer that service. Traction, let's just put this way. Traction is literally going to pull you out. It's going to pull your spine this way. The idea is that within the spine, within the disc, you're trying to create a negative pressure, and that ideally that little soft part that has herniated outwards is going to come back in with that negative pressure and just kind of come back in. Doesn't always work that way, but that's the idea and theory behind it. Flexion distraction has you laying flat on a table, and we actually can offer this service as a mobile practice. We're going to do a video on that in our Instagram page, either today or tomorrow. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, head on over to our Instagram page. You can search us as Axon Health, all one word, and we'll pop up. But flexion distraction, so you're laying face down on the table. Let's say this is your upper body, this is your lower body. There's going to be a piece on the lower body that goes up and down this way, and it kind of comes out and then down. So it's got that traction that I was talking about, a little bit of traction, and then it comes down this way. It's got the same idea as trying to create that negative pressure within the disc. Again, it was created specifically for disc herniations, and it's pretty successful with treating them. Not every chiropractic practice offers that. They need a special table in order to do that. So again, do your research, ask them if they offer either traction or flexion distraction. We do offer flexion distraction with Axon Health, so not every regular clinic has this option, let alone mobile clinics. So we are completely mobile. We go to people's homes. If you are in the Colorado Springs area and you have been diagnosed with a herniated disc, or you're suspecting that you have a herniated disc, you can reach out to us. We can come to your work, we can come to your house and treat you there. Especially with COVID going on, we know that people who are particularly immune compromised, they're not wanting to leave the home too much right now or at all. Maybe you're just uncomfortable with leaving your home in general, and that's totally fine too. We can still come and see you. So if you have any questions, any further questions about disc herniations, just feel free to drop them in the comments below and we'll try to get back to you. Have a good day, guys.